What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be all about algae and how I'm trying to combat it. So when it comes to algae, there's different factors that lead to the buildup of algae itself. Either you're overfeeding, you're not doing enough water changes, you're leaving your lights on for too long, or just a ridiculous amount of excess nutrients that's in your aquarium. Either way, if you're new to the aquarium hobby or you've been in it for a long time, you're probably going to deal with algae and there's no way around it. The only time you don't really run into algae problems is if you keep your water quality pristine, if you keep your aquarium understocked, and your lighting conditions is perfect. But for a lot of people, that's not the case. In this aquarium right here, I have 5 fish that's expected to grow around 2 feet or bigger, and they're packed in around 100 and something gallon aquarium. So as they grow, the more nitrates, the more nutrients is going to be in the water column. The best way to remove excess nutrients out of your water column is to do water changes. But if you're already doing a lot of water changes and your aquarium is still having nitrate problems, you're probably going to have to look into different techniques. One of my favorite techniques is adding Pothos to your aquarium. So how Pothos works in an aquarium is as you're growing the Pothos in your aquarium, the bigger the plant gets, the more nitrates that it consumes. So the bigger the Pothos you have in your aquarium, the more effective it will be being like a nitrate filter or something. Same as these plants right here, which are snake plants. They filter out the air for us to breathe. Pothos is kind of like that, but it works for aquarium fish. And that's kind of the reason why I have these 2 snake plants here. I heard they're really good air purifiers and natural air filters and whatnot, so messing around with 2. Don't know anything about terrestrial plants like this, but I don't know, just give it a shot, put it in a pot, and that's all you really need, right? And I'm also watering these 2 plants with my aquarium water, hoping that the nutrients in the water column will help these 2 grow very fast. Anyways, back to the topic of Jesus. Gotta turn my phone on silent, man. Anyways, back to the topic of removing nitrates from your water column. Pothos is my favorite plant to use in aquariums. They grow really fast, they're hardy, you don't really need skill to grow them, and they do perfectly well with just the roots in the aquarium. I used to have a big Pothos plant for this system here, but it grew super big and took over the window that's near my aquarium. And then it ended up congregating a bunch of bugs and it got really messy. So I decided to move it to my outdoor pond, and it's been growing there ever since. I don't think it got any taller. Maybe my pond doesn't have enough nutrients like this tank here, but it's still living, it's still outside. And yeah, it's pretty much cleaning up my pond outside now. So this is my new Pothos plant that I put in for this aquarium. It's just one of the cuttings from the original mother plant, and it's taken off very nicely. Started off with about this many leaves right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then these 3 kind of came out of nowhere and it's just growing upwards. So obviously my water is doing well for these Pothos, but at the same time that's also a sign that my water needs a little bit more nitrate filtering. So that brings me to this contraption right here. Let me go ahead and move this light. So what you're looking at is my old DIY betta box. I made this a couple videos ago, and it was meant to just hold a betta on top of a larger aquarium, so you don't have to dedicate a small tank for a small fish if you have a huge tank to kind of support it. Now that I had that project kind of put away, this box was pretty much sitting underneath my aquarium collecting dust. As I was trying to figure out different ways to reduce the amount of nitrates in my water column, I stumbled across this old project and decided to put this box to use again with a whole bunch of moss inside. Along with moss, I have fast growing pest plants that you would normally see as a nuisance, but I have duckweed in here. This plant grows so fast that if you have it in your aquarium, it's very difficult to remove from your system. If you have a display aquarium, I'd highly advise you to not put this plant in your aquarium because it just grows way too fast. So just to give you an example what the breeder box looks like up close. So you can see the top has a lot of duckweed, and what I have in the bottom is just some random moss that I had in my other aquariums, and I have a small Nubius that's kind of right there. And the reason why I put that Nubius in there is because I had no other aquarium to put it in, and when I put it into this main tank, it just looked kind of funny, so I decided to just put it up here. So the different types of mosses I have in this little box is subwassertang and Java moss. The reason why I use these 2 mosses is because I already had them kind of laying around in my aquariums, and I've noticed that they're some of the fastest growing mosses that I've personally owned, so I decided to put it in this box. You can see here, it might look like it's not really doing anything, but the reason why it looks like that is because it's kind of loud. Yeah. So that's what it looks like when it's on. I'll go ahead and let that fill out, and I'll explain to you guys how it works. So I have an air line there. It's regulated with that little valve. Air pushes up this tube, and as it's pushing up air, it pushes up water and just fills up this box. So then it's like a cycle. The water gets into this box and then fills up and then overflows through that hole and into the aquarium right there. And then the cycle repeats all over again. So this is pretty much like an overhead sump on top of my aquarium that has a sump, which is over there. So I'm trying to figure out how to implement that barrel into here because I have a whole bunch of duckweed in there. And all I gotta do is redesign this pipe to go up a little higher into there, drill a hole and have that pipe go into the sump. And then my pump in here will go into the aquarium and push back out right there. But that's going to be a whole nother video. Might be sometime later on in the future, but today's video is going to be all about this box. The light that I used for this aquarium was very powerful, and I've only had it for about 2 weeks, and it caused all kinds of algae issues. It was really bright, and after a couple weeks of just having it on schedule, it caused all kinds of algae, and I didn't really enjoy it. So I'm currently using it right now to light my garage. The light that I built for this aquarium is literally lighting my garage. Check it out. So this light was on my aquarium, it was lighting it up, and this is the weak setting. That was lighting my aquarium and causing me all kinds of algae issues. So we're just gonna keep it right there, and that's what we're gonna use for the garage light from now on. And it actually looks pretty cool. It was so bright that my bikers didn't even like it. But look at, like, that's a strong light. Hopefully I can congregate enough algae and plants in this box itself, so algae only grows in this box and not in my aquarium. This is kind of how the DIY scrubber works. If you haven't seen a DIY scrubber, it's pretty much just like this, but instead of the light shining into an external box, you're shining a light into your aquarium, and then you're housing the algae with like a piece of plastic, and then you have air line at the bottom that pushes water through the light. And then with that, you're growing algae in that specific area, and pretty much that's your algae scrubber or algae filter. I'm doing that with an external box. I'm hoping to keep this project alive until I actually see results from it. I usually test out a whole bunch of different filter ideas and then shut it down, but this one right here is gonna stay. So let me go ahead and give you guys an update on the bikers and see how they're doing. So here are the bikers. Here's one of my captive bred laps. Doing pretty good. I've noticed with the decrease in light, they're way more active and they swim a whole lot more. You can see the Ellie's swimming more too, which is pretty cool. The roots from the Pothos, it really grew all the way down, and when it kind of populates this side of the tank, I think it'll look pretty sick. As for decorations, when these roots fully grow out, this will be the prime decoration for this aquarium, which will be pretty nice because it's actually alive and it's a plant, so can't wait for that to grow. And as you can see, the roots, as they grow longer, they slowly drape down, which will be pretty sick when these guys are below it. So again, like I said, my lap is very active after I added in this softer light, and so is my Enley, which is right there. It's getting pretty big. I have a wide angle lens on here, so but you can see he's beefy. Let me get a full body shot. This is the alpha. You can see no damage on his fins at all because no one messes with them, and he's looking really nice. There's a little damage there, but that's probably from the wild. Speaking of the wild, there's the wild right there. Wild's doing good. He's eating. Notice that he has a little bit of damage on his top fin, but you can't really see it because he's always relaxed. And he only pokes up those 3 or 4 front finlets, which looks pretty cool. Still kind of skinny. He has to build up some size, but over time, as he eats, he'll get bigger and bigger. My favorite part of this wild biker is the head. Like look how flat that top of his head is. A lot of biker enthusiasts go for that spoon type of head shape, and I know this one's not really spoony, but it looks way better than that. Yeah, this is my smallest biker, which is it's a captive bred lap. As you can see, it took a lot of damage from the other Enleys being dominant than him, And besides that, it's looking pretty good. All my bikers have damage on their fins because when the alpha was letting everyone know who's boss, pretty much destroyed a lot of their fins. The rate of growth for this guy right here is kind of scary. When I first got him, it was about like 3 to 2.5 inches, but now he's just huge. Like, look at that guy. It's massive. And then there's the shy Anubis. This guy just lays there. He used to hang out with the wolf a lot, but ever since I moved the wolf, he just kind of chills like the polys. When the wolf was in here, he would swim around and all that, but now that all the other fish just kind of lay on the ground like this, he pretty much just copies them and does the same thing in the back. So you guys see my alpha biker, which is right here. Let me show you the other Enly, which is right here. Kind of in the darker side of the aquarium. It's not as big as the alpha, but he's still pretty chunky, and it's chilling next to the wild lap. So you can see this is what I was talking about. Right after those 4 finlets, that 5th finlet is damaged, so it doesn't really lift that one. You can get a better view of the Anubis. It's pretty cool. Anubis looks really good whenever it flexes its finlets, but it only does that whenever it's stressed, so as of right now, it's kind of chilling. Lap trying to get into the camera. And last but not least, here is the Ode Pike. Doing really well. He eats food off of the ground. I've never seen Kerosins do that before, so I'm really excited that this one picked up that habit. And he's growing really slow, actually. I would imagine that he would grow a lot faster, but at this point he's growing very, very slow. I'm actually pretty happy about that because I don't want him to outgrow this aquarium. Ode pikes are supposed to get to about 18 to 19 inches in captivity, so I'm really glad that it's growing at the rate that it is. And a majority of the time he's usually swimming around, but just because I have a camera in his face, he's not used to it. And also it's because I turned off my sump, so there's not a lot of flow in here, so he's just kind of chilling. If I had that sump on, it would be super loud, but I just learned to turn it off while I record. Even though this one's not a wild cod and it's a captive bred, it's one of my favorite laps right now. It's a pretty chunky fish. I was thinking about getting red substrate because a lot of the biker keepers keep their bikers with red substrate, and it brings out a lot of contrast in their scales and their color, so maybe later on we'll go ahead and switch it out, but as of right now, I'm pretty cool with what I have. I'm hoping that I'll keep this project long enough to see if it actually works. I know the DIY algae scrubber that's all over YouTube works, but I didn't really like how it looked and it wouldn't really fit well with my aquarium here, especially in my sump, as a lot of people just put them in their aquarium sumps. So I hope to congregate enough plants and algae in this little container to outcompete algae that would potentially grow in the aquarium itself. I would rather have the algae grow in this little box than in this box. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for the next one, and peace, guys.